Hello, this is Professor Levy from Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Obviously, I'm not in the college today, I'm not in my office, nor am I speaking to you from a classroom. I'm at my home here in Bethlehem, and I'm recording this video in an effort to talk to you about things that I often don't bring up in class, where I try to stay on point and talk about the material, talk about the content of our course. And I have a lot of other videos that explain procedures, that explain some of the technology that we use. But in this particular video, I want to talk to you about something else. This happens to be the start of a new semester. It's late August. I've met with a lot of my classes, and I wanted to talk to students about what I consider to be the truth about college from Professor Levy. Students are getting bad advice, I think, from many of their parents, some of their teachers, and even some of their high school and college counselors. They are being told that the purpose of college is to prepare them for a job. They're often told that they need a degree in order to be successful. This equates success with wealth, and it makes the goal of education material rather than intellectual, moral, or spiritual. As an historian, I note that this view is historically inaccurate. If we just looked at it from the Western tradition, starting with philosophers such as Socrates employed what I use in the classroom, which is called the Socratic method. This is a way of teaching and learning based on inquiry, a search for the truth, a search for intrinsic knowledge and the belief that all knowledge has value. Other great teachers and philosophers such as Aristotle, who proposed what he called the idea of the life of the mind, that knowledge is power, and that knowledge and power should serve a greater good. In the Greek, this was called demos, meaning the people or the community. It is the same root word for the word democracy. And this meant that knowledge and education and power also served some larger goals beyond the individual. You can find similar philosophies in African traditions, in Asian philosophies, and Native American traditions the world over. These views of education are fundamentally different, but not mutually exclusive. And by that I mean you can seek what I consider to be a higher education and still find gainful employment and a career that you'll find rewarding, satisfactory, and beneficial to you and your family. So these are not mutually exclusive. Yet, if you adopt the material view that is being, I think, pushed on students today, then you will find that most of your courses that you're required to take in college will appear to be irrelevant and unnecessary. You will find yourself wondering, why am I in this class? What does this have to do with my career? Why am I wasting my time? Why am I paying money and going into debt to learn about things that I will never need and things that don't interest me? I see a lot of my students who look that way. I can see that in their expressions on their faces, and when I talk to them, when I'm advising students to select courses and talking about degree programs, that's often what I hear. The answers you will get to those questions about why am I taking these courses, why do I need to learn this, will frequently be the same. They will say, you need those courses to get a degree so that you can get a good job. That is not really a satisfactory answer. If you really think about it, it means that the world is unfair. That you're right, you shouldn't have to take those courses, but you have no choice because you have no power. In this scenario, the student must simply endure the injustice of what we call education. You just got to get through it. Do your time. Like a prisoner in jail, you're sentenced to 2 years. if you're at a community college, or 4 years if you're at a university, or maybe more. Now, I strongly reject this view of education, as you might already suspect. I believe that the purpose of education is to prepare students for life. Your life is more than your job. We are also preparing students to live in a world based on certain principles. These principles include democracy, as I've mentioned earlier. The founding fathers did not believe that the masses of their day possessed sufficient virtue to govern themselves completely, which is why they created a representative republic that does not represent everyone. But our goal is still, as they said, to create a more perfect union. In order for society to work, there must be a general sense of collective responsibility. We need each other. We need schools, food, safety, shelter, yes, economic security, political order, spiritual life, art, entertainment, care for the young, the old, and differently able. Education is different from indoctrination. Education is teaching students how to think. Indoctrination is telling students what to think. And I never want to stray, across that line. Giving you the ability to think critically and allow you to have the facts to reach your own conclusion. Thinking critically means understanding the past. It means relying on evidence. It means being fact-based. It means relying on logic rather than prejudice. These are the tools that we try to get students to use. I don't claim to have answers to these larger questions, and I don't know anyone, alive or dead, who had the complete solution. But I believe that as human beings, we must keep trying to find the answers or destroy ourselves and much of the planet in the process. Therefore, I believe that if students are properly educated, they will be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And that brings us to the next part. How should students be educated? The dangers of community colleges in particular are many, and I would compare it to a beehive. In a beehive, you have worker bees, drones, and the queen bee. I fear that too many of our students are being trained to be the worker bees. Their education is only preparing them to occupy the lower places in the hive. Those places require less skill, they pay less money, they have less status, and are most in danger of being replaced by technology or by cheaper workers. In keeping with this hive analogy, managers of the hive, the supervisors, the highly paid executives who receive most of the honey, and the queen bee who controls the entire operation require a different set of skills. They need to be able to communicate with each other. They need to be able to think, at least in certain ways, in order to make the decisions that come with their level of power within the hive. The worker bee does not need to know how to write, does not need to know how to speak well or clearly, because no one cares what the worker bee thinks, nor will he have much opportunity to express a thought if one should enter his mind. In contrast, the queen bee must be able to analyze, evaluate, understand information, apply knowledge. Queen bees operate in the present with a thorough understanding of history and with an eye towards the future. They understand the economic and political systems. Queen bees must understand the psychology and sociology of the people they govern in order to be successful. Queen bees are educated to understand a variety of philosophies, theories, religions, and views. I submit to you that if you stop to think about it, What I have said thus far in this video is fairly obvious and incontrovertible. If this is true, go ahead and ask yourself the next logical question. What kind of education am I receiving? And when you think about that, you can ask yourself, am I being trained to be a worker bee or a queen bee? And if you're put on a track that just focuses on performing a particular task that may or may not be relevant 10 years from now, then you're being trained to be a worker bee. If you're in classes that don't require you to improve your writing ability, your ability to speak, your ability to think, you're being trained to be a worker bee. If you're in classes where you're expected to think about complex issues, if you're in classes where you're training your mind to solve problems, that's why you're taking algebra and taking high-level math functions, that all involves problem solving. If you're in classes like my history course, which trains students how to think, right? Historians, whatever history course that you're in, what it has in common is that we teach you how to think chronologically, right? History is the study of how things change over time. Why do you need to know how things change over time? Because you might be in a position where you are reacting to change or causing change, or in a position where you're trying to maintain stability, the absence of change. And so understanding how that works is very important. History requires you to have command of many facts. That's why we have to learn so much stuff. This event, this name, this place, and keep all of that in our minds at the same time. That's an important skill for queen bees. A lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts, a lot of bees in the hive that you have to manage and control. And so having a mind that can control a lot of facts and put them in chronological order, this, then that, this causes that, and that is a result, a consequence of something else. This is what we do in history. This is why dates are important, because that tells us the order of things. And so, yes, you might not be a history teacher, you might not want to become a history professor, but if you plan to be a queen bee, you need to be able to think chronologically, you need to be able to think sequentially, you need to be able to think logically, you need to be able to think, period. Okay? And so this is why and what you're supposed to be getting out of all of your history courses. And I could say the same for psychology courses and philosophy courses and all of your language courses and all of your math courses. All of those are trying to help you develop certain intellectual skills. And so I'll say in conclusion, if you understand this, make sure you're getting the best education possible. Make sure you're getting an education that's going to prepare you not only for a job, but for life. Make sure that when you're in these classes that you see yourself, as I say my first day of class, to think about your class as a gym, and you're there to work your mind. If you don't already have these skills, this is the time in college that you're developing them. If you're asking yourself, why am I paying for this? You're paying to improve your mind, which is your most precious possession. And I would also say to students who still have some resistance to this, is I just want a job, I just want to go on and become what it is I want to do, to think of this as a unique moment in your life. And now that you understand what some of us are trying to do, to give yourself over to the process. Even if you don't understand why this course is relevant or why you need to know this, trust us enough to say, I'm going to try to learn it and see what happens. See how it makes me feel. See if I feel like I'm getting smarter, if I'm developing skills and abilities that I didn't have before. And if the answer to all of those questions are no, then I'm going to tell you something that I'm sure no college advisor would ever say, and that is, then school and college is a waste of your time and a waste of your money. You are not getting anything out of it. But if you can determine that this is of some value to you personally and ultimately professionally and societally and globally, then it is important You should invest your time and your energy. Take it seriously. Don't waste this opportunity, and enjoy it if you can. So that's my little talk to you outside the class. You're not required to listen to this. There will be no questions on any exam to see if you understood it. You're not required to agree with me, and I welcome your feedback in any form, either in class, outside of class, or coming by my office if you have a different view. I welcome and encourage that very much. I respect you. I have every hope in you and your generation. Take care and be well.